When truth feels like a threat, the quiet philosophy of lost common sense. There's a strange ache that comes from watching the world forget how to think. Not intellectually, not in terms of knowledge or facts, but in something quieter, something deeper, something older, like common sense, like basic awareness, like the kind of knowing that used to live in the bones, not just the brain. Lately, it feels like a spell has been cast. A fog, subtle but thick, has rolled over conversation. People shout, but few seem to listen. They argue, but not with the intent to understand. They choose sides, identities, echo chambers. And in the noise, something vital is disappearing. The ability to pause, to reflect, to hold contradiction. It's easy to blame social media, the algorithms, the speed, the curated outrage. And yes, they play a part, but I think it runs deeper than that. I think somewhere along the way, we forgot how to be uncomfortable with not knowing. We demand certainty, and when the world refuses to give it, we invent it. We shape facts into shapes that fit our fears. We trade nuance for slogan, doubt for dogma, complexity for convenience. George Orwell once said, "The further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it." And maybe that's what this is. Not a loss of intelligence, but a quiet rejection of truth. Because truth often hurts. It asks us to admit we were wrong. It asks us to hold space for paradox. It asks us to face parts of ourselves we'd rather avoid. And so, we push it away. We mock it. We brand it as dangerous. We build little shelters out of ideology and call them homes. But truth is not loud. It does not beg for attention. It simply waits. Soren Kierkegaard once wrote, "People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought, which they seldom use." And isn't that what it feels like sometimes? A lot of noise, a lot of shouting, but not much thinking. There's a loneliness in noticing this, a kind of quiet grief, not just for others, but for ourselves. For the parts of us that go quiet in the face of absurdity. For the voice that whispers, "This doesn't make sense," and is quickly told to stay silent. Have you ever been in a room where everyone seems to agree with something you know is wrong? And you hesitate, not because you're unsure, but because you're tired. Tired of being the only one asking questions. Tired of being painted as negative or difficult or unkind. When really, you just want something real. Simone Weil once said, The danger is not that the soul should doubt whether there is any bread, but that by a lie it should persuade itself that it is not hungry. And maybe that's what's happening. We're starving, not for food, but for honesty, for clarity, for the courage to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. Instead, we cling to shallow certainties, not because they're true, but because they're safe. And yet, there's something sacred about doubt, about not knowing, about the willingness to sit in silence with a question and not rush to answer it with noise. We've built a world where image often matters more than integrity, where performative outrage is applauded and humility is mistaken for weakness. But philosophy teaches us to slow down, to turn inward, to question. Nietzsche once said, "Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed." And we all carry illusions about ourselves, about others, about the world. The difference is, some of us want to see them clearly, to hold them up to the light, to watch them crack, not for the sake of destruction, but for the possibility of something truer emerging. Others would rather keep the illusion alive, because it feels safer that way. But is it really safe? To live in a world where we're punished for speaking gently, where asking questions makes you an enemy, where silence becomes the only honest response? It's exhausting and heartbreaking. There's a cost to clarity, a weight that comes from seeing what others pretend not to see. And yet, you're not alone. If you feel the ache, the dissonance, the quiet alarm that rings when something just doesn't add up, you're not broken. You're awake. And yes, it can be lonely, but there is a kind of beauty in it too. Because once you let go of needing others to agree, of needing to be right, of needing to fix the madness around you, you start to remember what it feels like to just be, to see clearly, to think slowly, to speak honestly. Even if no one claps, even if no one joins you, even if it's just you, sitting in the quiet, holding a truth you can't prove, but can feel in your bones. This is not superiority. It's not about being better. It's about remembering. That common sense isn't taught by systems. It's felt through experience. It's shaped by suffering and softened by compassion. You don't need to have all the answers, but you are allowed to keep asking the questions. You are allowed to think for yourself, to hold the tension, to doubt loudly and love quietly. This world may spin faster every day, but you can choose to slow down, to notice, to reflect, to say, I don't know everything, but I know what feels real. And sometimes, that's the beginning of wisdom. Even if the world forgets, you don't have to. Let the truth be quiet. Let it be yours. Let it live, not in the argument, but in the way you live your life. With honesty, with courage, with eyes open, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Because truth is not the enemy, it's the thread, the one that ties us back to what matters, to each other, to ourselves. Even in a world that seems to be forgetting, let yourself remember.